Hi, my name is Asher, and I'll be talking about electoral fraud and corruption. But to talk about this topic, first we have to answer the question, what determines or what constitutes a democracy or a fair democracy? So we'll define this as when the government actually properly represents the people that it governs. So most electoral fraud obviously will happen here at the base of the definition, where a government or certain officials or even groups of people will prevent other groups of people from voting or participating in elections. So in the past and even currently, mostly currently, it's women and minorities who can't vote. And one of these reasons for this is religion. In some Islamic states, women are not allowed to participate in political issues. It's more seen as a manly thing, and men will frequently and actively prevent women in their communities from using their voting rights. For example, in the Lower Dir district of Pakistan in 2015, literally less than a decade, 8 years ago, male family members prevented female family members from attending the parliamentary regional elections. Of course, they couldn't stop everyone, so some women made it out, they made it to the voting booths, and they found more men waiting for them at the voting booths, except they're armed with batons, and they didn't let a single one of them vote. Not a single woman out of the 50,000 in the area were able to cast a single vote. Hate and prejudice also causes a lot of the misrepresentation in government. People who are ostracized by society feel like they can't make a difference when they vote. Additionally, people who have been wronged by the government, such as Native American Indians, often feel like there's no point in participating in elections when the government will continue to mistreat and bully them. For example, the Dalits in Hinduism are the lowest class of the caste system. Thus, they very rarely have the proper materials for voting. And when I say materials for voting, I mean like simple things that just go over our heads, like documentation, registration information, transportation, and even literacy. When I had to vote, the most difficult thing I had to do was look for my passport for my documentation. And I just asked my mother where it was, and she found it, gave it right to me. But a lot of these people don't have these documents such as this. And so in 2010, Nepal implemented a program that spread electoral awareness and education to the Dalits, helping them gather their materials, educating on the issues and stuff like that. And 2 years after the program was implemented, over 770,000 new Dalits had joined the voter registry. Hate also prevents small groups such as the Dalits from allowing one of their own to gain their own platform in candidacy. Although their own people might push one of them forward, there's hardly anything to do when a Dalit candidate can't get any funding and they face opposition from literally every direction they turn to. Funding is also one of the biggest issues in a political campaign, and most of that money is spent on advertisements. But the thing about advertisements is that they often contain misrepresentations of all the candidates running. Of course, this is how democracies work. You explain why you're better than everyone else, but the problem arises when people no longer have any unbiased or healthy information to listen and learn from. One of the most common ones is paying off news channels to boost your own party's topics and your own angles. And in this way, you can manipulate the people's intake of information. False information can also be spread as well. Fake statistics and, a more modern example, fake edited videos completely rip down a candidate's public image. Even if it's fake, people still receive a false public image, a bad public image, and this can ruin their candidacy. But speaking more in terms of the core of the problem of funding is that the smaller your party or platform is, the less money you'll get, and therefore the less votes you'll get. Of course, this works the opposite way. The more money you have, the more votes you'll have. So in this way, corrupt officials are able to target women's platforms. Women's platforms typically receive way less donations than their male counterparts, and governmental policies do nothing to prevent this disproportionality. One of the bigger issues in funding is that in some nations, officials will accept large monetary donations from individuals. Of course, this results in that individual having a very large influence on how the elected official runs their office. After all, that official owes the individual a large debt, and they'll pay it back at the cost and expense of the people. For example, in one of the largest financing scandals ever, a Brazilian construction firm named Odebrecht was able to illegally provide funds to a former Peruvian president and a former Brazilian president. It's one of the largest corporate scandals ever, with 429 individuals being investigated. And that's only the scandal that was caught. Imagine what kind of smaller and underhanded deals businesses, entire businesses, or even singular individuals could run. But enough talk about problems, let's talk about some solutions. Transparency is key. It must be first and foremost in every government. Governments and officials must report where they got their funds, who they got them from, where they got them from, what purpose they were used for, etc., etc. Policies must be enacted that strictly demand transparency amongst candidates. But most importantly, there must be good enforcement of these policies. Other things, such as good access to polling places and freedom of speech, are also key to a corruption-less nation. Freedom of speech especially. How can people be expected to make educated decisions if they can't even properly discuss and argue their beliefs? Political speech must be promoted, no matter who or what side of an issue it comes from. Propaganda and one-sided perspectives never create correct decisions, and it's only when a person has all the facts can he or she make the most correct, or more correct answer, more fitting decision for him or herself. But despite this corruption, it's important to understand the country that each person comes from. Not all these factors exist, or if they exist in different ways. Each country has its own differences and systems, and it's crucial that, no matter the system and the culture, each country strives to protect its people's voices.